got a great film to play, just
Hello?
Have you ever snubbed a lady?
We had a technical problem.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're on there.
Can I swear? Shit!
Welcome to Crunch and Roll, tales from the dysfunctional world of radio, told by the people who've been there, done that, and inadvertently given you a time check at the start of every conversation. 9:29. I'm John Fox, and in a former life, I spent 2 decades presenting breakfast shows on BR&B, Signal, Viking FM, 210 FM, and a little bit of work at BBC Radio WM. My guest in this episode is somebody that I used to work with at one of those very stations, 210 FM in Reading. And he was there almost a decade. But John Darin's 36-year-long radio career began in East Anglia, took him up to the northeast before taking in various spots in the home counties. In this lovely chat with my old mates, I found out so much stuff that I really didn't even know, like how he wasn't really cut out for the management side of things and definitely didn't have an ear for a tune as a head of music. Also the unusual reason for having to do his overnight show from a studio in a different town, and the almost unbelievable story about his living arrangements during his time in Newcastle. It's incredible. As you probably know, we are on Ko-fi, where you can slip us a couple of quid just to help keep the pod in your feeds. That's at ko-fi.com/Crunch and Roll. But if you're interested in advertising or sponsoring Crunch and Roll, we might just have the package to reach just the audience that you're looking for. If you are interested, just email hello@969media.co.uk. Right, let's Crunch and Roll.
Oh, yeah.
John, how are you?
I'm all right, John. It's going to be a lot of Johns here, isn't there? It's going to be all right, John. I'm really good. It's nice to see you. I haven't seen your face for a while, as it goes.
Do you know what? I've been so excited to record your episode because I haven't seen you physically for so many years now. And
Yeah.
I genuinely mean this, John. You haven't aged at all.
That's very kind. I don't think you look much different either, to be fair.
Well, that's good. That's good to know.
Have you been drinking the elixir of life as well? Because I don't know what I do, but yeah, people say that to me, though, as I get older. So that's not a bad thing, is it? Not really.
Well, you've been on my list of guests for many years now, so thank you very much for coming on Crunch and Roll. Often people say to me, and it's different when I know people like yourself or I chat to people that I've never met before, but people often say that they get quite nervous doing Crunch and Roll, doing an episode of this and talking about their careers. How have you felt today, John? Because I want to just double check, welfare check.
Yeah, do you know what? It's as Steve Wright used to say, love the show, John. And, I've listened to a fair few episodes and I really enjoy listening to people talk. And it is a bit Piers Morgan, isn't it? You are a bit Piers Morgan in this. And you're delving into, like a life story. And I've got a lot of years and I've never really done that before. So, yes, it is a little bit nervous. But at the same time, it's quite cool, I think. I quite like the idea of going back through history, back to the war, and seeing what we can get.
Well, we'll get onto this in a bit, but of course, we crossed paths when I came to 210 FM, and you were there doing mids, and then afternoons. And we'll get onto that in a bit. But when I first met you and we first started talking, I always felt we had a connection because you're from Ipswich, and I'm not from Ipswich. I'm a Hull lad through and through. But my family are all from Ipswich. So when you said, I'm from Ipswich, I was like, wow, it's like we are some kind of Suffolk brothers. And I really warmed to you from that point. And I think it's also nice that I don't think we've had many guests on Crunch and Roll who have been from the east of England, who have done those stations around there. So I'm really chuffed to A, have you on because you're a mate, B, because you're a bloody good broadcaster, and C, because you're a Suffolk lad as well. I can't do the accent. Please, excuse me.
That was terrible, by the way. That was really terrible. Yeah, I think a lot of people from that neck of the woods don't tend to leave that neck of the woods. You're from Suffolk and Norfolk, and you don't tend to leave there. I mean, it is a nice part of the world, but if you want to get on the world, in the world, you move all over the place, don't you? I'll tell you the other thing, John, which makes me warm to you as well, because when I think of you, obviously we were at Reading together, but of course you were on the Mighty Viking FM, and Hull is your home. In Ipswich, I don't know whether you realise this, but it must be an East Anglia thing. It's very flat. So in the summer, when I was a boy, when the atmospherics kicked in, I could get Viking FM in Ipswich. It would literally come down through the water. If you look at a map, you can see how East Anglia juts out. You can see where Hull is. You could get Viking FM in Ipswich when the atmospherics were right.
No way! I didn't realise. I've heard that it made Norwich, but I never knew it'd go even further to Ipswich. That's incredible.
It's a mad thing, isn't it? It's a crazy thing that would work. But there you go. I was a radio anorak, so I knew this.
So tell me where your passion for radio came from, then, John.
Very early age, I was bought when I was about 5 years old. I was bought a top-loading cassette player. You might remember these if you're old enough. But a top-loading cassette player, which had a little microphone that you plugged in with a little remote on-off on it. I was about 5 years old, literally, and I would record myself into this thing. Now, it also helped that my dad was in the electrical world as such. At that time, he used to fix things. So he would often bring things home that he'd fixed and people had thrown away or whatever. Didn't nick them, by the way. But people had thrown away, so cassette players or, whatever. So I was brought up in this world of just playing about with all the technical side of stuff. I used to listen to the radio all the time, of course, record the top 40 like everybody else did in those days and try and fade it out before they start talking. And I think it's, people have asked me this before. I think it was just something that was just there. I love radio. I love the technical side of it. I was in that world. And from that top-loading cassette player, I carried on, and then we're talking, bedroom studios and building transmitters and using the mum's washing line to transmit it to the street.
So you got the passion at a very early age, and then I want to know how you went from that point there in 1989 to starting your career at Radio Orwell, which also just the name Radio Orwell brings back some amazing memories of spending time in Ipswich with my grandparents, because I remember the car stickers. Did Radio Orwell turn into SGR? I know we're getting a bit anorak-y now.
Yes, it did. Yeah. Radio Orwell and Saxon Radio, as it were the two stations, and they became SGR FM. It was actually at the point that I'd just left to go up north. So, that's the point they changed to SGR, which is Suffolk Group Radio, but it was simply Great Radio, but it was Suffolk Group Radio. That's what it was.
Was it? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have memories of growing up listening to Radio Orwell?
Yeah, I mean, Radio Orwell was my local station, and it's like with all of us, we always listen to our local stations, don't we? But, and I didn't know what was good or what was bad. But what I did have living on the coast in East Anglia was Caroline coming out of Brinton-on-Sea, pretty much, just off the coast. And then later Laser 558, they were very strong in East Anglia. So they were wonderful to listen to and very good. And also, I don't want to be too technical about this, but we had a what you call an 8-leg Yagi on the roof. That's a big aerial. And we had it pointed at London, so I could pick up Capital as well in Ipswich, because it's 70 miles down the road. You have to mono it out, so 95.8 on FM, mono it out to get rid of the noise, and you can listen to Capital quite happily in Ipswich as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of radio that I listen to, and I loved. And yes, I was one of those sad people that recorded often the presenters talking, not always the music or the adverts.
Do you know what? Genuinely, I never knew you were this anorak-y, John. I didn't know that.
I keep it to myself. I don't really. I mean, you're asking me about it, and I'm telling you where it came from, and it's true. I mean, when I think back, yes, of course I was, because I think that a lot of radio people are. Don't you?
So, I do. But then the more of these episodes I record, I realise I was probably less anorak-y than anybody else.
Wow.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure where my love came from. If I'm honest, I think I just love talking in between records. So just tell me about how did you get that first gig at Radio Orwell?
Oh, I hounded them. I mean, I left school. I had a normal job for a few years. I worked with vintage MG sports cars, which was quite rare. When I say vintage, I mean 1930s up to 1960s, up to MGBs. Did that for about 4 years. Always wanted to do radio. Loved music at that point anyway. Then decided I really need to get into radio. And I was, at this point, already recording my radio shows in my bedroom and broadcasting to the street. So I should record my shows. And then I got a job for a year in a factory. Just really boring job. But my focus, I guess I was manifesting before manifesting is now a popular thing. My focus was I'm going to get a job on the radio. So I'm going to go and work in a factory just to do a brain dead job for a year. And I'm going to focus on making my tapes and sending them, as you did in those days, to the radio station. Radio Orwell got fed up of me knocking on the door every 5 minutes, got me in one day, and basically offered me the overnight show. It's the first ever, because you remember, John, radio stations weren't 24 hours. They used to stop at 1 in the morning or midnight and play the national anthem, put Peeps on all night or something ridiculous. So I did the first overnight show Monday to Friday on Orwell and Saxon. It's one of the early kind of networking things, I suppose, that existed. 1 till 5:30. So yeah, they basically just said, look, thanks for the tapes. Let's give you a go. And, that lasted for maybe a year and a half. And then I got onto daytimes, as you do, covering shows.
Do you know what? I don't know about Saxon radio. So Radio Orwell was Ipswich. Where was Saxon?
Bury St Edmunds.
Okay. All right.
Saxon being the Saxons, it's a historic place, and that's just the Saxon name just runs through. But yeah, Saxon radio was exactly, it was like Radio Orwell was blue and Saxon radio was red, and it was the same badge, different frequency, but looked identical. And there was a lot of networking that went on. They had separate breakfast shows back in the late 80s, early 90s, separate breakfast shows, but everything else was networked. And I used to do my show, bizarrely, from Bury St Edmunds. Even though I lived in Ipswich, I used to drive to Bury St Edmunds every night. It's only half an hour because it was deemed more safer. Because in Ipswich, I did a few shows from there, but it was underground. It was in the cellars at Ipswich. It was a bit creepy, a bit scary. The airlocks used to go in the night. Whoosh, no one around at 3 a.m. So they used to go, go to Bury St Edmunds, it's safer.
So they made you go to a different location just in case there was a ghost. Is that what you're saying?
I am, pretty much. But Ipswich is synonymous with pirates and tunnels and stuff. And the tunnels ran right up to Electric House, which is where Radio Orwell was. And there was tunnels under Ipswich all the way to the docks. And there was a lot of smuggling going on. And there's a lot of scary stuff under the streets.
Not only are we getting your career, John, we're getting a history lesson about Ipswich as well, which nobody's ever done before on Crunch and Roll. This is brilliant. This is unique. Tell me about who else was there when you started at Radio Orwell. What kind of presenters? And also, who gave you the job as well?
So it was a lady actually called Sally Gordon. She was the program controller at the time. My mentor, however, was a guy called Andy Archer, who you may have heard of. He was also on Caroline, and he's been on BBC stations later. And what a lovely bloke. And a guy that I used to listen to on the radio anyway. So to have him as my mentor was incredible, to have him actually teach me the ropes as such. That's really lovely. And Nigel Rennie, who I bumped into a couple of months back, who's been on BFBS and loads of other stuff. And he was very big on doing the country show. We also had these shows, didn't we? So he used to do Sunday Country and all the rest of it. And it's great to bump into Nigel from time to time. But, they're people that you're never going to forget, are you? It's like you just don't forget your first radio station and who you work with.
And you were there for a year, and I never knew this about your career, because I always thought you were kind of south of, let's say, Scunthorpe. But you spend a year at Radio Orwell and Saxon, and then in 1990, you moved to the northeast to be part of the Metro Group. I didn't know that.
That's a funny one, that, because we're talking in the days before technology. And I had a phone call at Radio Orwell, bizarrely, in the office. And it was a guy called Roy Leonard. And Roy worked with Giles Squire. And he used to run GNR, which is Great North Radio, which is the AM of both Metro and TFM. And he said, "Oh, I've been listening to you, and I'd really like you to come and see me in Newcastle upon Tyne." And I'm like, where the hell is that? I mean, I literally didn't know where. I had to get a map out and go, oh, Christ, that's fucking miles away. But, they paid for your train journey and everything. But, yeah, he'd literally been driving around as they did in those days, and he phoned me and said, "Come up and see me." And I went up, got the train. It was lovely. And, yeah, he gave me a gig. I think I was 22. I'm pretty sure I was one of the youngest presenters on Gold AM radio at that time, in about 1990. At 22 on an AM Gold station. It's pretty rare, isn't it?
What was that like at such a young age to be moving so far away from home? Because, I guess I did the equivalent moving from Hull to Reading. It's like I didn't know where 210 FM was either. So I was like, well, I'll have the job.
Wow.
I've got an F clue where it is. What was it like for you?
Well, this just goes to show I had no fear. I literally, they offered me the job that, it was like double the money anyway. So it was a bit of a no-brainer. And I looked into it a bit more and thought, looks pretty cheap up north, and, what could go wrong? I literally, John, this is no word of a lie, the first 2 weeks of being at GNR, I was living in a tent in a camping site because I didn't know how I was going to sort this out. So I took a tent and I found a campsite near a place called Rowlands Gill, which is on the Gateshead side of the river. And I lived in that tent for 2 weeks, going into work every day, doing a radio show, until someone at the radio station, because obviously it was a massive station, Metro, someone said, "Oh, we've got a room if you want it." I was like, yeah, great. Who would do that now? Who would literally go, right, no. I'm going to move here, I'm going to live in a tent for 2 weeks? Who would do that? What
time of the year did you join that radio station? What time of the year were you camping out for 2 weeks?
I think it was kind of March, April time, I believe. So,
Jesus.
Well, to be fair, in the northeast, it snows in July, so you're never going to get nice weather, are you?
Your parents, who I'm sure were incredibly proud of you, cracking your dream and going on to be a professional radio presenter. But when you phoned home and said, "I'm in a tent," they must have been slightly concerned. Do you think?
Do you know what they were? But they knew that I was going to do it. That was the thing. There was no stopping me. I'd got this job. I knew my start date. There was no technology, John. You can't go on the internet and source whatever, you haven't really got the money, I suppose, to book a hotel or anything. So I just thought, I'll take a tent, and that's fine. We'll be fine, and it was fine. And then someone gave me a room, and that's how it was. I know it. When I say it now, it sounds crazy in my head, but it's true.
Yes, it does. This is such an amazing episode. I'm just learning so much about somebody I've known for so long. I never knew that. That is incredible. So tell me about your time. Did you enjoy it, being part of the Metro group? Because as you say, it was a huge radio station.
It really was. It was massive. Metro as in FM, and GNR being the golden, covered TFM as well. So for a start, the GNR area was massive because it was the northeast, the whole of the northeast and North Yorkshire. So it went down to Northallerton and York as well. So all the way up. So you had your transmitters in Stockton. Was it Stockton? I think it was somewhere around there, maybe Middlesbrough. And then Newcastle upon Tyne, obviously. And then all the way up pretty much almost to bloody Berwick. It's a massive 3.5 million TSA, I think it was, on GNR. So massive. And then obviously the success of Metro. I've heard on this podcast, John, people talk about, Capital being, the station down south, and Metro to me up north was rocking it. Really was rocking it. It was so successful. Giles Squire, who I keep in contact with now, was an absolute legend, and that station was so good. You'd have Take That in 1 week, you'd have Bros in the next week, and you'd have a cafe on the second floor that we'd all meet up in the morning. I think when I started there, I did the tea time show. It's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'd be there at 9 in the morning just to have breakfast with the guys, whether it be Steve Coleman, who was doing breakfast at that time, who I keep in touch with now, And I'd be there all day because why wouldn't you want to soak that up? Because there was so much of a learning curve going on. And Metro to me was, well, it was an eye-opener after being in East Anglia, Orwell and Saxon, to have this 3-floored, I think it was 3 floors building, had a great big production suite where they created the adverts and stuff like that. Newcastle upon Tyne was this, geez, they go out on a Tuesday night like it's a big Friday night, and it was very happening, and it was complete shock. But all the stars would come up to there because they realised that it was a big part of what was going on at that time. So, and whether it was the Newcastle City Hall or these venues that were up there, the stars would come and play those. And yeah, I found it was like going to college for me. I put it down as like my university years, if you like. That and also we had the 3 Tons, the world famous 3 Tons, which is a pub just up the road from Swalwell. And I soon learned that unless you go in there at lunchtime and have a couple of pints, you're never going to do a great show in the afternoon.
I can't believe that of you, John. You would never drink and then drive a desk.
I tell you, it was the done thing in those days. You'd go in, have a couple of pints, loosened you up just a little bit, just enough.
Tell me about Giles Squire, because a lot of people have mentioned his name. Everybody, and this is maybe to this point where you change my opinion, but so far, everybody said what a legend he was.
He was a legend. He was just, he knew what he was doing. He just had it. If anyone in radio knows just how it works, then it was Giles. And you never really questioned what he was about. And you've only got to listen, if you can, listen back to that output of that station of Metro particularly, and you can hear it. It was on point. It was absolutely on point. And he was a great guy. He was very cool. You could sit in his office and he would talk you through what you were doing, how you were doing it. Maybe give you an early idea of a vision board or something to get you into the mindset of what you were trying to achieve. He just had it. I mean, and still has, I think, to this day.
It was a technical problem. You heard something on air you shouldn't have done.
Oh, yeah. So you spent 4 years there. Did you, because, obviously you went there to do the AM service. Did you get to do any FM stuff on Metro, on TFM?
I did. And I don't, I think I fitted the AM much better. I think I was a very old, young person. I did one Northeast night shift, John, one. And it was the scariest thing I'd ever done at that point because it felt massive because it was not only on Metro, but it was on TFM as well. And it was on Great North Radio. It was like a network overnight show. So I know it sounds like an overnight show, but it was Northeast Night Shift. And first of all, that studio at Metro, the FM studio, the microphones, the sound of the studio, when you go, oh yeah, this is cool. And it was, and it just built you up. It gave you confidence. And the only mistake that I made that I, to this day, get very upset about was announcing the new song by Pui.
Go on.
Pop will eat itself. They couldn't fit it all in, so they put Pui.
Is that the reason why you only did the one show, do you think, John?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, I didn't know. It said Pui on the music sheet. I just thought, well, this is... And I think I remember saying, well, this is an interesting name for a band. Isn't the one from Pui?
I tell you what, we've done it. We've all done that. When new bands come through. Was it Limp Bizkit? Limp Bizkit was. I wanted, and I was like, oh shit! I wish I hadn't done that.
We have all done it.
We've all done it. We've all done it. So you spent 4 years in the Northeast. Why did you leave then to go to Anglia Group?
Because so I went there on GNR. I stayed on GNR. I did different shows. I did breakfast for a bit with the lovely and late John Warwick, who is a guy that I missed deeply. I mean, God, we lost him 25 years ago now, probably. But and we had different. Roy left. Roy Leonard, who was in charge of GNR, moved on, and then We had Steve Parkinson for a while. I know Steve. In fact, he's working around the corner from here, believe it. Steve Parkinson ran it for a while. And then Big Jim Brown came in. And then Big Jim Brown, who I loved because he was just the best, just said, oh, we're going to change direction. And all of a sudden, he's from being like a young person at Fit, he said, "Now you're too young now." so he, it's just a mutual kind of like, oh, that's fine. I mean, I'd had 4 brilliant years. I can't complain about that at all.
So you go to work at the Anglia Group, covering at Hereward FM.
Yeah.
CNF. I'm having to say this slowly. CNFM. I'm going to say KLFM. Was that Kings Lynn FM, was it?
Right, so what's CNFM then, John? Come on, give you 5 seconds. 5.
Oh, don't, you're going to, I don't know, go on.
Cambridge and Newmarket.
Oh, my dad lives in Cambridge. I should have got that one. Did that then become Q103?
Yes, it did.
Oh.
Yeah, you should have known that.
I should have known that. I should have known. And Hereward FM, which sounds too much like... Yeah, it sounds too much like heroin for my liking. But you went there for a bit to do some breakfast and daytime cover.
Yeah.
Tell me. I mean, you're heading back towards Ipswich. Was that a happy time for you?
I was never, John. Make it clear right now. I was never heading back towards Ipswich. There was nothing there. There was family, but there was nothing else. And I was having way too much of a great time to want to go back to Ipswich because I'd done it. And, what am I going to do? Go back onto SGR FM or maybe BBC Suffolk that was there now? No, I didn't have that in my mind. I just thought, look, I'll just go where the work is. And there is an interesting bit here, actually, because I was covering Hereward and KLFM and CNFM, as you said. And then GWR Group came in to buy out all these stations, and that's where CNFM became Q103. But before that happened, and remember, I was doing cover work, but I was also looking for other work. So I'd already been on a train to Birmingham to meet in a coffee shop with a very lovely bloke called Phil Riley. You might have heard him.
Yes.
And he was basically starting a brand new radio station in Birmingham called Heart. And he offered me, I think it was mid-mornings, and I signed the contract. So I think this was, I don't know, 93, 94, something like that. Forgive me if I get my dates wrong. Early 90s, early to mid-90s. I signed the contract to join Heart, brand new radio station. Now enter GWR Group, who'd bought Mid Anglia, where I was at this point that I'd signed the contract with Phil, who, by the way, lovely bloke. Met him in a coffee shop in Birmingham with my Today newspaper. Remember the Today newspaper? That went, didn't it? And I remember it fondly. And enter GWR Group, enter Steve Orchard. And Steve was desperate to sit down with me. And he said, I used to share a room with Phil Riley, don't you? We used to be like room sharers. I know Phil. It's like, okay. He said, yeah, this station Heart. He says, I don't think it's right for you. I think it'll be like you being on Radio 2 now. It's just, I think you need something a bit more hip. Now, this station Q103 that we're launching in Cambridge, you'd love that. And I had a girlfriend at the time as well who just then decided, do I really want to move to Birmingham? And I was like, oh, you're kidding me. So what do? Do you leave the girlfriend and just go to Birmingham anyway, And Steve Orchard's going, no, you've really, Phil Riley will understand. We used to be roommates. He's fine. So I literally had to phone up Phil Riley on the phone and say, Phil, I'm really sorry. I've had a change of mind. Do you mind if I don't come? Even though I'd signed the contract. And he was upset about it. But, it's okay. Well, I can't force you. Can't chain you to it. So, regrets. You should never have regrets, should you, John?
Well, I was going to ask the question, do you ever regret not leaving that girlfriend at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I still stay in touch. She's lovely.
Oh, do you?
But yeah, absolutely. Because I really should have gone to the brand new Heart in Birmingham, shouldn't I? Yeah, I mean.
Well, I've got to say, I've got a lot of love for Phil Riley. who of course was the big Godfather boss at Orion Media when I was at BRB. He was an imposing figure, but he'd only have to say one or two words, and it was enough to fill me with confidence to go on to do a breakfast show. He was a great big boss. I want to talk about Q103 because already you tick so many memories in my brain. It's just wonderful. But I've mentioned that my family from Ipswich, and then my dad, who now lives in Cambridge. I have so many fond memories of listening to Q103, which, as you say, was formerly CNFM. So you go to Q103. Is this brand new, fresh Q103?
Oh yeah, better music mix for Cambridge, and no rap, less chat, and all that stuff that we know from the GWR group, and voiced sweeps, and we used to play songs that were 8 minutes long. Whether I'm trying to think what they would be now, but I was trying because the music was very different when we started there, but it was pretty cool, and enter the liner card, as we've and the Bible, as I'm sure people have mentioned, which is not a bad thing, John. I've got to say, a lot of I'm not a fan of local radio. I never have been, and a lot of it is okay. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of it that was really poor, and I totally understood where these GWR guys were coming from. And remember, at Metro, when I was at Metro, it's very much you designed a clock for the show. Everything was planned. You knew what you were doing. It was very focused. So there was a lot of local radio that was very loose, if I can use that term. I'm not knocking it, I'm just saying it was loose. And GWR came along and they're like, what are we going to do? Well, we'll stick this thing in and you stick to that. You say this here, you do this here, you play this song. You do not cut this song off. You do not fade this song or talk over the intro. And I could get it. I understood where they were coming from. And it did sound fresh. At the time, it had to change, obviously, but at the time, from what and again, I say I'm not knocking anything, but from what CNFM was, I think Q103 was certainly a lot brighter.
It's funny you mentioned the Bible because, of course, we had Dirk Anthony on an episode here on Crunch and Roll, and I had to ask him that question because, of course, my time at 210 FM, which we'll get onto your part of 210 in just a bit, but I always remember him being such an imposing figure. Some described him as like Darth Vader. When he turned up onto the mothership, you bowed. He was this big character, well-known character. And I had to ask him the question because I don't recall ever using the Bible when I was at 210. I think those days were long gone. But, a lot of people, and it's funny you should say what your opinion on that you didn't think it was a bad thing because he stands by what he imposed on people. He said that there was a reason he did it, and I pretty much mirrored what you said, that he needed a standard right across the whole group in order for it to succeed.
I mean, you've got, there's some very good presenters, but there are some that used to talk maybe a bit longer than they needed to, and the Australians' philosophy was very much shut the fuck up and play the hits, and there's a kind of there is a need for that at some points, and and you can loosen it up when you've got that regime put in place. But yes, it absolutely needed to happen because otherwise you were never gonna. It's like being conscripted into the army. You hate it, don't you? Because you've got this drill where you're up at 4 a.m. and you're running more than you've ever done before, and you're like, what's this all about? But it's kind of drilling you into something new, and that's what they needed to do to make these stations stand out and be different from what was happening elsewhere.
And you're also head of music as well at Q103. I never knew that. So where did that? I mean, I didn't realise you were so into music. Was this your thing as well? Was it the passion for music?
John, in 1995 or 96, a CD arrived at Q103. I opened it up. I played it. It's bloody awful, and I put it in the bin. Spice Girls Wannabe. So do you know what I wouldn't say I had a natural ear for music, but I could certainly schedule.
Well, there's nothing wrong with commissioning testing. The dealer does a lot of work in order to...
Well, I'm all for being open-minded, but I'm not all for discussing this live on air. Thank you.
We are profoundly sorry.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's move on to 1996 then, John. Chiltern FM, Dunstable, mid-morning, deputy PC, and head of music again. Which fool gave you that role? Which idiot gave you that role?
Do you know what? It wasn't too bad at this point because GWR knew what they were doing music-wise. We had a group head of music anyway, and at the time at the beginning it was the lovely Sarah Henderson, who, again, still get on. She's a birthday buddy of mine. We're both 3rd of November.
Like she was at Signal. She came to Signal.
Oh, okay, yeah. So she was at the what was the Watershed in Bristol at GWR, and she would make all the big decisions, and then we'd apply that locally. And actually, I did at some point there. I did deputise for her as well. I mean, they actually let me in control of the GWR group music role for about a couple of weeks. I mean, I know, John. I know. It's yeah. I mean, I just must have been competent in some way at some point.
And also, I want to touch on the deputy PC side of things as well. Was it always your ambition to get into management?
Christ, no. I think no. I hate it, John. I hate it with a passion. Who in their right mind would get rid of a microphone and a pair of headphones and a laugh and a chat and play music for sitting in an office and telling other people what they've done right or wrong, or guide the station or come up with brilliant marketing ideas? I've done it, obviously, but it's not fun, is it? I don't see it. And yes, I've walked into these roles, and clearly, maybe I'm a kind of person that I think I make a great deputy. I don't necessarily, and I've been a program controller as well. I think I make a great deputy. I can back up anyone, and I can help, project manage or whatever. I can do that, but just let me carry on having fun as well.
It must have been difficult, and this is not just yourself, but a lot of people that were either PCs, PDs, or deputies to those people, and still on air, because you've got to practice what you preach when perhaps you're preaching something that you don't want to practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I was always, as in the football analogy, a player manager. I always was. I was an on-air PC at most of my roles, so. Yes, I did have to practice what I preached. But, when you've got a regime, again, like the GWR group, it is very structured. We knew what we were trying to do. So you just have to lead by example. And, it's not a difficult thing to do.
Let's talk about Chiltern as well, because we've had a few guests on Crunch and Roll who've got wonderful memories of Chiltern. And what an incredible station that was. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was another building, the old school in Chiltern Road in Dunstable. It was another incredible place. When I was there, I mean, I got there at the point where Paul Chandler was exiting. So I've never really worked with Paul. Obviously, I knew him, and but I never really worked with him because obviously it was coming under GWR. But I knew of when they were moving out. But great place. And, you've got the likes of Paul Burnett and DLT, as it was at the time, working on the AM side, which was Johnny Walker. God, can you imagine doing a show and Johnny Walker's in the studio next to you? I mean, it's a pretty incredible place. And it was a good, hot, rocking station, and very successful. And Trevor James, who was at Viking FM. And
yes, he was.
Yes, and who I spoke to him last week. And he, we had a lot of fun. I was deputy to him, and he was great. You'd go out and say, "Oh, we're going to go outside for a fag, and we're gonna sort this out." Okay, and that's what you do. In those days, that's the kind of thing you do. But that Chiltern had a certain thing about it. It was a very successful station, and it rocked. It really did, and. It's probably one of the places that came close to Metro for, having a feel about it. And obviously that smell, because all radio stations have a certain smell. All
right, so in 97, you do Cover on Late Night Love for the GWR network.
Yeah.
We won't go into the group head of music as a stand-in, but was this for, we've established that bit, was this for Graham Torrington, was it? Were you standing for Graham?
Yeah, because Graham in those days did Late Night Love, but he was also like network program manager. What his title was, so he looked after network shows, and he must have thought, or they had a conversation, thought, I think John would, probably be all right on that. And he called me up. We had a conversation. He said, look, I've got 2 weeks holiday coming up. Can you do Late Night Love? And yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I tried to be the GT too much, I think. I should have just been me. But, it was a historic show. It was a big show. And you had lots of calls. Nightmare to record them onto DAT and then edit them on, not DAT, sorry, minidisc. Record them onto minidisc, edit them on minidisc to play out the next night. The other thing about the Watershed, John, I don't know if you know this, the Watershed in Bristol had that awful BBC fader thing going on. Fader down for on, up, off, down, on, and the minidiscs fired off on a fader start down. And I remember the first Late Night Love I did on the network. Come on, you got Dirk listening, you got Steve listening. And I remember obviously nudging the fader a little bit too early. And as I brought it down, the caller was already about, 5 seconds into what they were saying. And you feel like it right prat, don't you, when that happens?
It's funny you talk about being nervous covering for Graham, because I covered Graham on the BBC network across the Midlands.
Mm.
And I was nervous like you were. And I tried to be too GT as well. I put the mic up, and that was not my style. I put the mic up, and I was like, hello, it's Foxy. What are you doing? John, what are you doing to you? It's weird, isn't it? It's like he takes over your body.
He does. I was there. I was like, hey, it's John Darin in for GT. I've got the L Love plates on tonight, and here we are. Here we are. Have some Luther Vandross. It's just, it's a weird thing, but he is such a legend. He really is.
All right. So in '99, Chiltern FM again. This time Bedford. Mid-morning and program controller. So you've been bumped up here, John. You go back as the big gaffer.
Again, it's player manager role, but it was all right actually. It was the old police station on Goldington Road in Bedford. It was again a lovely building. Wasn't quite as elite as the Dunstable branch. Bedford was the poorer cousin of the two, but you know what? It was fine. There were some good days there, and I just got on with it. But I don't think I was ever. I think they would. I can't remember who it was. I think it was John Sanderson at the time, who was head of Horizon. He was the managing director of Horizon, and he was managing directing here. He was the one who kind of gave me the gig and pulled me in and trying to teach me the ways of budgets and money. And no, I remember one day, I think I'd worked out my budgets, right, John? This is as far as my management goes. I worked out my budgets. I think I'd managed to save like 25 grand or something. And I went to John and went, oh, look, I reckon I can get a presenter in and I don't have to be on air anymore. And I remember that very day, John just like wiped it off the bottom line and went, that's a saving. And that was it. And I stayed on air. So I thought this management thing is not for me, clearly,
Can you remember any of the talents? And I hate using that word. Any of the talent that you hired at your time as PD?
Yes, I can. There was a guy who came to Bedford and he really wanted to do, well, his dream was to be on Capital. And he was a great presenter, but I wasn't sure. But anyway, his name was Neil Williams.
Okay, yeah.
And he went on to become Roberto on Capital.
Yes.
So I think
his success is down to John Darin.
No, absolutely not. He knew what he wanted to do and he was going to do it. But yeah, I mean, how incredible is that? And what a great guy. So yes, I mean, Andy Gelder, who I still keep in touch with, who was on breakfast at Dunstable, moved over to Bedford a bit later as well. You've got Matt Jamison. You might know Matt. Do you know Matt Jamison? This is one of those like, oh, do we know? Who do we know?
No, I don't think I do.
Oh, Matt's great. I mean, do you know, it's funny, isn't it? I've heard these before. It's like you had Neil Bentley on here, for instance. Neil Bentley, who's been at a lot of the stations I've been at. I've never actually met Neil Bentley, But we've had conversations, and we literally must have passed on the motorways, or as he's gone out of a radio station, I've come in, or as I've gone out, he's come in. And it's one of those weird things. Radio does that, doesn't it? It just kind of like, it's like the Neil Williams Roberto thing. It's incredible how, and I'm probably forgetting people that I've probably, been involved with over the years, that because there are too many people to remember, John. That's the problem.
All right, so Chiltern FM, Bedford, mid-morning program controller. 2000, you become the project manager. The launch of Mercury FM in Watford. You talk about Mercury FM. How was that experience for you?
It was a station that it started its life as Oasis in St Albans, and then it became Mercury, as a lot of these stations changed their name. Well, the smaller stations changed their name. And then they realised that they were missing a trick with Watford, because it is a major player in this area. So they thought, right, we're going to move to Watford. We're going to become Watford's Mercury. It's a bit like Bedford's Chiltern instead of B97. And yeah, I got given the task. I think it was a Dirk job, which is lovely. I don't mind a job from Dirk. That's great. Just go and oversee this, and give them. And yeah, it's nice. I quite like going into a brand new kind of move, or a radio station being refreshed and doing the things that need doing, all the housekeeping and getting the jocks all G'd up to what they need to do, and all the branding is right, and are we sounding right? Are we going to be okay? It's quite, and then you can just go, woo, see you later, carry on with it, and then off you go. It's quite a nice little gig, actually, to do that.
Did you have as much say about what went on as you would have liked?
I think you have a say, but you've got to remember that there's a lot of guidelines in place. I mean, no one's going to walk into Great Hits Radio today and say, I think we should do it this way necessarily. If it's a ridiculous idea, obviously, I think free speech and everyone. So if you had an idea, something that would work, yeah, absolutely. But you've got to keep it within, does it work? Is it right? What's the listener benefit, John? What's the listener benefit of this? What's the listener going to get out of it?
Are they going to spend any money with the local car garage? That's what I'm asking right now. Right, let's move on to the next station, because this is, and forgive me if you don't want to be known as this, but for me, you are Mr. 210. You are Mr. 210 FM. In 2001, you go there to do mid-mornings, then afternoons. You're there for a staggering 10 years. Huge amount of time. How did you end up going to 210 first? I want to just focus on this a little bit, because this is where I met you. Yeah. You are Mr. 210. How did you get the gig?
There were changes happening around Chiltern, and I think they were going to mould the two together. They should have always done that. There should never have been separate Chilterns anyway, as far as I'm concerned. Shouldn't have been a Bedford one and Dunstable one. So, and remember, I'm in that program controller on-air role that I didn't really like. So, I think they were looking at making some changes, and they were thinking, well, if you want to be on air, then why don't we see if we can get you on air at somewhere pretty cool or pretty big? And 210 was as you know, it was a massive station. It was a big TSA. It was ran very well, as you know. So pretty much, I sat down with a few of the bosses, and we decided that I would move to Reading, and one of the happiest days of my life, I have to say. I absolutely loved that move. Moved in straight away. I think it was Summer Excess, was it? They used to do Summer Excess concerts, and Busted were headline, and I went straight into seeing that. And I thought Reading was I know you mocked it earlier, but I thought it was a pretty cool place. I never really knew it, and I didn't know what was going on. I rented a room out, as you do, being a student, and to start with, and it was great. I absolutely loved it. It was a magnificent radio station. I thought it was run really well. They did some big promotions, had big ideas. It was a lot of fun. So, and I was just doing a show again, which is what I always wanted to do.
Was look, when Tom and I arrived to do breakfast,
Who are these? Who are these Northerners?
Well, I mean, obviously Tom was a proper Cockney, but I often want to. Well, I want to ask you the question: did you think to yourself, "Who are these dickheads"?
No, I didn't.
That's a lie, John. I can tell you started scratching your head profusely.
No, do you know what?
John, be honest.
I've never thought about that about anybody, and I certainly don't think that about you. It needed a change, and you were the change it needed. I think, and it was refreshing, if not anything. So no, of course not. I'm not. I think it was refreshing. Am I not sounding convincing? I think you're looking at me and saying, what a load of old bollocks.
No, it's not that you don't sound convincing. I think that's just a polite way of saying, yeah, you two are a pair of dickheads.
Do you know what? Tom actually, from time to time, will message me when he's in Leytonstone, because my granddad used to live in Leytonstone. And if he's ever standing on Leytonstone Station, he'll send a picture of Leytonstone and go, oh, look where I am.
It was a bit of a it was a bit of a culture shock for Tom and I when we went to 210, because we'd come from Viking, we'd come from EMAP, because it was still EMAP at that time, I think. Yeah, it was. I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
And we came from a really heavy drinking, socializing culture, and then we moved to 210 FM, and the boss there. I'll never forget he obviously signed us, and we'd agreed to go down at a certain point. We went down that afternoon. I'd text the boss and said, "Wait, we're coming down. Do you want to meet for a beer?" And he texts back and said, "I don't drink." And it was at that point that Tom and I thought, maybe we've made the wrong choice here. But there wasn't the, and there was some, don't get me wrong, there was some, in that office, there were some really incredible people. Incredible people who were really, really passionate about the radio station, who worked incredibly hard. But there wasn't, and maybe there wasn't because we never got invited, but what it seemed like to us, there wasn't that culture that we were used to. So we came down, and as you say, you lived in Thatcham, and people just seemed to live everywhere, and it was just a very different time for us.
It was reserved, I guess. I mean, I think the one thing about the South and the North divide, and having lived in both and worked in both, in the North, you just have a good laugh. I mean, it's fun, everyone's friendly, and the South is a bit more reserved. And I think if you're a Northern, hey, here I am, and I'm doing the breakfast show, your boss doesn't drink, Tim, bless him. Then what are you going to do? You've just got to adapt. But you found a way to do that.
Yeah, and I think it was our first snoop with Tim, where he sat us down and said, "I just want you guys to know that I don't have a sense of humour." I thought, oh no, we might be in for a bit of trouble here as well. we're here for a laugh. Can you please have a sense of humour, just between 6 and 10, please?
Do you know?
And
he
can't deny that. He can't deny that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I thought it was great. I thought you did a great show, and I loved it. I only saw it as a positive. I understand, and obviously I realised at the time there might have been a few issues in the background, but that's just how it is, isn't it? Sometimes.
Well, I mean, was Howard Ritchie there when you were there? Was it us?
Oh, Howard, bless him. No, I think I first. He was. Yes, he was. He used to come in and do some shifts and cover. I think I first met Howard at Imedia. I used to do some shifts. Have you heard of Imedia, Bruno Brooks's place.
Yes, in Newbury.
In Newbury, yeah. So I went and did Dixon's Live. Come and get this 42-inch LG TV today. And here is Dexy's Midnight Runners for the boys in Bradford. And he was, I think Howard was working on, I think it was Lloyd's Pharmacy or something, because Bruno Brooks had that market sorted at that time. He had all these various in-store radio stations. And then Howard Ritchie would come in. He was so brash, wasn't he? He still is, Howard. He makes me laugh. I mean, he was a bit calm. He came around my house a few times. He was a bit calmer when he came around your house. But he was in the radio studio. He was like, Alpha Malian, Howard Ritchie's here. And I was like, I don't know how to say this. He used to come, I used to be on air, John, and I'd mic open doing a link. It'd literally bowl in, door swinging open, crash his bag on studio desk, and look at me. And I'm like, and I literally do my link as the pro that I am, close the mic and go, You're right then, prick.
I have a lot of stories about Howard, of which some we can't share without him being here to defend himself legally.
But what a lovely bloke. I mean, I love Howard. He's his own way, and what a voice as well. You know.
Incredible,
so there you go. Yeah.
I remember because he would never admit his age, and Tom found his passport in his briefcase. He talked about his bag. It was his briefcase. That he used to bang on the desk.
Yeah, briefcase.
Yeah. And we got his passport, and he took the radio station off air until we handed it back. He did not want anybody to know his real age.
Wow. I mean, I do remember him doing one morning on Lloyd's Pharmacy at a media, and he'd done a whole half an hour and went, "Oh, I think I'll switch to studio on now." Didn't even have it switched on. He was just sitting there chatting to himself.
Let's just talk about you at 210, because you will always, in my mind, be Mr. 210, Mr. 210 FM, because you were there for such a long period of time. Why do you think you were so successful at 210?
It just worked for me. It was a great radio station. The promotions we did were tremendous. We were always getting involved, and we had a lot of autonomy at that time as well. So we had good budgets, because obviously the station was making good money, and it had a good TSA and a good radar and all the rest of it. So autonomous and some great ideas, and it just seemed to be part of the community, and it felt big. Actually, it felt like, I mean, the radio station itself was a big. Obviously, there was a lot of GWR/GCAP bits in that building anyway, from IT to HR and all the rest of it. It was a big building. So that was it. Again, it felt like Metro did in the early days. It was a big building, lots of people, and I used to love that. I don't know whether, John, you were a fan of the Fishbowl studio, but, maybe in the morning it wasn't such an issue for you, but I'd be on air later in the day and they'd all stare at you through the glass all the time, so... but no, it was great, and I just felt part of the area and felt like it was going well, and it did go well. I just good radio station, loved it.
We'll finish on 210 now, but I'll finish on this point, that the one thing I realised was how much love there was for you in that building from everybody. Everybody loved you.
People, I mean, how can I react to that? I mean, I don't think I'm a horrible bloke. I try to get on with most people, with the exception of briefcase wielding Howard Ritchie on a bad day. But, I get on, I just get on with people. So, I don't really cause, much hassle. And yes, it was. I knew a lot of people in that building at Reading, and we had a lot of social time as well. You obviously didn't know all the people that did drink, which is a bit of a shame, but there you go. So, yeah, it was great.
That's a bit of a sour mention there of a social, because there wasn't nobody invited us for some reason. Okay, well we were just sat in Goring-on-Thames on our own in the middle of Mansfield, whilst you and everybody else at 210 FM was in Reading. That's some nightclub which I can't remember the name of. Anyway,
look at you dropping Goring-on-Thames in. That's where George Michael had a pad. What the hell's going on there?
That's where I had my pad. Of course, that's where all the real stars. That's where all the real stars lived. Me,
wow.
George Michael, John Medeski, and Tim Henman.
I lived in Sonning-on-Thames for a while, and up the road was who's the guy who used to bend spoons? Uri Geller.
Uri Geller, that was it.
Yeah. He lived up the road. Yeah.
He's got this taking a funny turn, hasn't it?
It really has.
What celeb? What? Let's call now. What celeb did you used to live next to? All right, so you after 210, you leave radio for a year. You take a sabbatical, and then in 2012, you go to Hart in Hertfordshire to do the drive show and program controller, and you were there since 2012. Such a long time. Although you will always be Mr. 210 to me, you were there for a little bit longer, weren't you?
I actually never thought I'd be anywhere longer than 210, and I always wanted 210 to be my longest stint, to be fair, because it was very cool, but how I managed to do 13 years here, I don't know, quite frankly, but it's been very cool. When I first moved here, it was my second opportunity to live in Berkhamsted, which is a great place in Hertfordshire, by the way. Then I met my other half and moved to Watford, and been there ever since. but there's so much going on around here. So I've the mayor sends me a Christmas card every year. I mean, what can you what? It just doesn't happen, does it? So I've met so many lovely people. I've hosted events and been involved in the area, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be part of that for 13 years, and I've got absolutely no regrets about it. I probably should have finished doing it 3 or 4 years ago, probably. So I didn't quite, shouldn't have gone over the 2:10 time, but there you go. It's done now, isn't it?
It was, at the time of recording this, and I'm not certain when your episode is going to go out. So, I watched your video because you did a lot of social media stuff, didn't you? Filming yourself doing links, which is lovely to see. But to watch you do your final ever link, I could see that you're really battling back those tears.
Yeah, I knew what I wanted to say. There's been a lot, there's been a lot going on. I lost my dad last August, which was huge in my life, and it was relatively sudden as well. And I think for anyone that loses someone significant like that, so that was massive. And I've lost a couple of aunties along the way as well, and my mum is back in Ipswich and trying to look after her. So there's so much going on. So I kind of knew what I wanted to say for that final kind of bit, but needed to get it out. I remember doing a eulogy at my dad's funeral last year. It was August he died, and I nearly made it to the end of that, but broke. And I've got no sadness about this. I've got no sadness at all. So it's emotional because it's 13 years at a place, which is incredible, and there's a lot of people to thank, and a lot of good memories. So I was able to do it in a way that was emotive, but without just crashing it. And I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of those big goodbyes, to be honest, John. I don't like those. The big last show, and we got all the guests in, and we do. Oh no, I'm not really. No, because JK and Kelly Brook are going to pop up on Monday and get on with a brilliant show, and you're not. Life goes on. Queen don't go. Oh, Freddie Mercury's dead. Well, let's just have a big party and just dream about him for the rest of our lives. No, you get Adam Lambert in and you go and do it properly. You do the next thing. So I'm always a big believer that life goes on, and you just continue. And, it's my 36th year this year. Can you believe it? I know I don't look like it, John, but it's my 36th year this year. So, I've got plenty going on. So, I'm quite happy.
Do you have? I mean, you don't need to go into the plans, but do you have plans for what's next? Because I remember when I knew I had to leave radio, it was very difficult. It was a very difficult period in my life, but it was difficult to try and work out what was next for me. Have you got an idea of what you want to do next?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in the universe and fate, and I don't necessarily. I haven't got any immediate rush right now because we're moving in the next kind of couple of months. Got a couple of health things to deal with. Nothing major, but a couple of health things to deal with as well. So actually, what I've done is I've just thought, well, I can still do things like this, chatting to you. That's great. I've got some events and things that are coming up, and voice a few ads and all the rest of it. That's fine, I can do that. But let's focus on family, home, and getting that sorted, and then we'll let everything else fall into place. So I'm just a believer that that's either going to happen. If it doesn't happen like that, then I've not got no issues. I'll go and wash cars naked on the high street if I need to. So whatever.
I don't think you need to do that naked, John. I think you can do it with your clothes on. Is that your USP? Is it? No,
yeah, it's USP. Yeah.
What's been your highlight of your career?
Oh, wow. I love that question. And it's such a difficult one, isn't it? Because you work with so many incredible people over the years. But because I'm on here with you, John, it's got to be 210 FM when that Foxy and Sam First Breakfast show kicks in.
When you and everybody else was in the pub and we were trying to look for you that day.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, in seriousness, I can't answer it really. I mean, it's just too many.
Who do you enjoy listening to on the radio? And this can be past or present.
Oh right, yeah. I mean, I'm a big Gary Davis fan actually. On Radio 2 now, as he covers all these various things. I love Gary Davis. Always loved him when he was on Radio 1 back in the day. I think he's a great presenter. I love him even more because I think I tweeted him one day and said something. I think it was listening to one of his sounds of the 80s on Radio 2, and I was like, oh, I love this. And he actually messaged back to say, oh, thanks, and I thought, that's a nice bloke. And then I've bumped into other people that have known him and said, oh, he's a really nice bloke. Because you always want them to be nice, don't you, John? When they say never meet your heroes or whatever. I met Steve Wright because he did the rounds, which you've had on this podcast. He came in as a consultant for GWR, and he came to Chiltern. I think I was at Chiltern. Steve Wright, and what a great guy. We just chatted about ibuprofen and paracetamol and what tablets were like in America, and because he was an absolute like me, loved an illness and what you could take to get over it, or whatever, is hypochondriac, I think is the phrase. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've even forgotten the original question you asked me, John. I think it was like that was my highlight, or whoever I work with. I don't know. I've gone off piste. I got up, as Tim Parker used to say at 210, you've gone up the cul-de-sac, mate, and there's no way out. I'm beep, beep, beep. Can't get out of this link. Beep.
And Tim Parker, of course, the PD at 210, whilst he was giving you that bit of advice, of course, he was probably going around the office on a skateboard, if you remember.
Yes, he was. Always eating an apple and always going around the office on a skateboard.
He was always eating an apple.
Always. It's incredible, isn't it? Absolutely incredible.
Do you know what? John, thank you so much for being on Crunch and Roll. It is one thing I always remember of you is I never heard you mess up one link ever.
Oh, I'm sure I did.
No, I don't remember it. You were just perfect from the moment you flicked open the mic to the point where you kissed the vocal of the next song. It was always perfect.
Well, you're very kind.
That's how good you are, mate. That's how good you are. And do you know? And the other thing is nobody's ever said a bad word about you. You're just a lovely human being, and I really appreciate. It's lovely to see your face, and it's been many years. And thank you so much for being on Crunch and Roll.
I've absolutely loved it, John. I mean, I was nervous at the start, but it's been a real trip down memory lane. I'm sure there's stuff I've probably forgotten, but it's been great. I've really enjoyed it, and it's good to see your face.
You that's a lie. You'll text me later with something that you've forgotten. But John, good luck in the future.
Thank you.
Good luck with the house move. It's wonderful to see you. Will you please do us the honours of taking us away with the end credits?
Oh, I've been looking forward to this as well. I've really been looking forward to this a lot. So let's do this. You've been listening to Crunch and Roll with me, John Darin. Subscribe or follow us on your favourite podcast app to get every new episode as soon as they drop. Crunch and Roll is a 969 media production presented by John Fox and produced by Simon Borzowski.